Hello, I am now in the place where you can get personalised videos from all of your favourite celebrities, content creators and podcasters like me. If there is someone you want a personalised message for, a personalised shout out, a birthday message or just something funny, search for Darren Reese Football for Kids on the Cameo app now. It could be for a kid, it could be for an adult, or it could be for your whole football team. A pep talk, something which everyone will find hilarious, and anything in between. Head to the Cameo app to get yours now. Hello and welcome to the Football for Kids podcast with me, Darren Reese. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Pele, but the particular time when Pele went to the USA, or to be more precise, when Pele went to the Big Apple, aka New York City. Football for Kids over the past 250 plus episodes has been building an audience all over the world, and somewhere which I've discovered the podcast is growing a lot is the United States of America. So a massive shout out to everybody in the USA and beyond who's been listening to the podcast and sharing it with their friends and family. But in particular, there are now thousands and thousands of you listening in New York, across the state and in the city. The people of New York are clearly spreading the word about the podcast, and as a big thank you for that, I thought we'd do a bit of a New York month, where at least one episode a week amongst the other episodes will be something to do with New York soccer, or as it's known on this side of the pond, football. Hey, if you're from New York, please keep telling your friends and family about the podcast and let me know whereabouts you're listening from. And for anyone anywhere else in the world, I want to get the shout outs back up and running and get them going properly. My ambition is to do 3 shout outs on every episode on the main podcast in 2025. So, if you want to shout out for yourself, your football team, your coaches, somebody in your family, maybe it's an amazing teacher, or whoever it is, ask an adult to head to the website www.footballforkidspodcast.com. We've covered a lot of this podcast. When it comes to soccer, I did an episode on football stateside. I also did a 2-parter on Pele, which was quite a while ago. And it's one of the most listened to episodes I've ever done. Hopefully you've had a chance to listen to that and hear all about Pele's amazing story. So let me paint the picture a little bit for you about what soccer looked like in the USA at this time. When I say this time, of course I'm talking about the time that Pele came to town. I mean, of course soccer was being played, because as you'll know from the episode I did on the history of football, some form of the game is on record to have been played in some sort of way all the way back to 700 years ago. However, in the 1970s, American soccer wasn't really that much of a bigger deal at all. There were some professional leagues, but looking back at that time and reading a lot of information on that era, it's reported that soccer back then wasn't of the greatest standard. It was inconsistent, and the amount of people actually going to the games and actually playing the sport was pretty minimal. In fact, in comparison to now, it was almost non-existent. So, to get people excited about it, to get more eyes on the game in the country, and to get people talking about USA soccer, they needed someone the world knew about. Someone that not just soccer fans admired, but everyone admired. They needed a global icon. Of course, you know who that is by now. Pele, as you'll know if you've listened to episode 1 and 2 on his amazing story, was so very nearly a one-team player. He played for the Team Santos in Brazil for a very long time. He played 583 official matches for them. He was easily the most famous player in the world. Not only across football or soccer, he was known by everyone, in every country, in every town, on every single street. A bit like Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi are now. I've used this analogy before, but if you had taken Pele up to space back then and dropped him randomly at a random time into a random place, no matter where he landed, the closest person to him would know who he was and scream Pele. Unless, of course, he landed in rural Alaska and the closest thing to him was a polar bear. Oh, and just in case you were wondering, that was a polar bear saying Pele. By 1971, Pele had conquered football. Not only had he scooped every award imaginable, he graced nearly 600 top-flight matches for his club in Brazil, and he'd lifted the World Cup a record 3 times. 55 years on, that record still hasn't been beaten. The magnitude of that achievement isn't spoken about enough. He was a global icon. Pele jetted around the world like royalty. He would be rubbing shoulders with kings, queens, prime ministers and presidents. He was a familiar face in the White House, photographed alongside US presidents and rubbing elbows with some of the biggest names in history. Pele was semi-retired in the year of 1974, but then on October 10th, news broke that there would be a huge announcement of a superstar coming to the USA. This is how the news broke.
Player Edson Arantes de Nascimento, better known to fans as Pele, signed a contract today with the New York Comets, Cosmos, a member of the North American Soccer League.
Pele had signed for the club for approximately $7 million. New York Cosmos had paid nearly $7 million for one man, which in today's money is about $30 million. He was the most expensive athlete in any sport in American history, and at a press conference he announced that he would be joining the club and he wanted to raise the awareness of soccer in the USA. When the news broke and the people of America heard that the legend that is Pele would be a sports person in their country, he was mobbed like nobody has been mobbed before. So much so that things actually got dangerous. At one appearance in Boston, he was surrounded by so many people who wanted his autograph, his picture, or just to touch him and shake his hand that he ended up being injured and evacuated on a stretcher. That is how crazy it was. Pele made his New York Cosmos debut in June 1975. Would he score? You bet he would. It was a game against Dallas Tornadoes, and Pele in his first game in the USA had more people watching soccer than they had in years. He scored them with his left foot, he scored them with his right, he did keepy uppies running up and down the pitch, he rainbow flicked players, stuck the ball through their legs, and he lit up football pitches all across the USA in a big way. Not only was Pele bringing huge crowds to soccer matches almost everywhere he went, but the other thing which he did is that he made the rest of the world look properly at America when it came to soccer. So not only were there more eyes on the sport in the USA, but there were people talking and watching American soccer around the globe. It doesn't stop there though. No, it doesn't. Not only was Pele doing all of that stuff on and off the pitch, but he was a huge part and a big person in the opening of the door of other footballing stars making their way to the USA. The likes of Giorgio Caniglia, the great Italian Lazio player, joining New York Cosmos as well. Johan Cruyff, he left Barcelona for a short period and played for the LA Aztecs. And for a while, George Best was another player to grace the pitch across the USA. Pele was the person who made this stuff happen. In 1977, Pele led his team to the Soccer Bowl, which was a huge match between Cosmos and Seattle. Over 62,000 fans packed into the stadium, which, for the record, is more than the full capacity of Arsenal's Emirates, more than Chelsea's Stamford Bridge, and more than Liverpool's Anfield. And this was 1977, 48 years ago, as I sit here and record this today. Pele really brought football fever to the USA in a big, big way. This huge match in front of all of the thousands of people would be one of Pele's last competitive matches with the club, as he would then go on to properly retire and carry on doing the fantastic charity work which he was also so very famous for. In his couple of seasons in America and playing soccer across America, Pele did some wonderful things. All across the world, not just in America, the iconic Pele New York Cosmos jersey was being brought and worn everywhere. So were scarves, hats, jumpers, you name it. If it was what Pele had worn or it had his name to it, then it was something which everybody wanted. To finish off, like in most of our episodes, there's a lesson here, and there's a lesson to be learnt from Pele's short spell in New York. And the lesson is this: if you zoom into Pele at this time, he was just playing football or soccer. But if you zoom out, and then you zoom out a bit more, and then a tiny bit more, and maybe a little bit more than that, and you look at the bigger picture, he was making those who weren't admirers of the sport big fans. He was inspiring kids and adults in the USA and around the world. He was making more people want to watch the sport in the country. He was doing so much more than just playing the beautiful game. No matter what you're doing in your life, if you're doing good things in the right way, you too will be making a big impact without even knowing it. I hope that you've enjoyed listening and learning about Pele in New York and the incredible impact that he had on the sport in the USA. And remember, if you know somebody who loves football just as much as you do, then please tell them about Football for Kids. And whether you're playing football soon, watching it on the telly, or pitch side, I hope that you enjoy the game. See you next time.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.